So usually the first thing that I'm going to start working on when it comes to a drum sound is going to be the kick drum sound. And while a lot of that has to do with the drum and the rooms, we'll get into that specifically today. We're talking about microphones. So if I had to go through my brain in order of timeline, then this is usually how it goes when it comes to making decisions. These microphones are lined in chronological order of where they sound as far as records go. I've got the 57 out here because, it sounds like the 70s and it's kind of an outlier. The 47 is back there because it's more used as a supplemental microphone, though it can sound very old and it can be at the very beginning of this list, as well as any overhead microphone that I use at all can be the kick drum sound, and that can be on this list as well. But really, we're going to start with the D20. These microphones were utilized a lot in the 60s. They were utilized as the Beatles. This is known as the Beatles kick drum sound. It is an absolutely amazing sounding microphone, but it's got a very subdued high end and it's got a round, pillowy sound to it. When you get into the D12E, this microphone, they're sticking together. This microphone is a little bit more tacky. It's got a very distinct boxy quality to it, but a lot of records from the late 60s, early 70s into the later 70s have that sound. The 666 here really is a distinct sound for me, and there's a couple things that this thing really sounds like. One is Hotel California. To me, this is the sound of the Hotel California kick drum. I believe it is the microphone that they use there, but I spent a lot of time trying to get that sound, and this microphone has gotten me closer than any of the other microphones on this table. From there, this also was used on Motown records on the kick drum. They use an RCA ribbon microphone, which I don't use on the kick drum because it's fragile, and this provides a quality that is a lot like some of the Motown hits because they did use this microphone there, and it's very, very similar. The RE20 is a bigger sounding microphone than this guy, but it sounds less punchy. That being said, it is an extremely punchy sounding microphone, and this is the sound of the 70s kick drum. In my opinion, right here, this is the sound of a 70s kick drum. The 85 ends up on this list because this is the sound of Motown kick drums in the 1970s to me. There's rumors that they used the 86 as well as the 85 with a windscreen. I own an 85, so that's what we use, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Now, the 421 is an interesting choice because it spans the decades. This was a very, very popular kick drum choice, it seems, in the 70s, as well all the way up until the 90s. It's got one of the longest shelf lives out of any of these kick drum microphones right now, and this is the sound of the knock from the Death Kick. Was used in Bob Rock's kick drum sound. It was used in Bruce Swedine's kick drum sound, and it's absolutely amazing. This one right here is the M88 from Beyerdynamic. I really love this microphone for kick drum sounds because this is the sound of what I call the British 80s. All the records that he was doing, he utilized this microphone a lot. So it sounds like the Police, and it sounds like fucking, Peter Gabriel's records, and it sounds like Phil Collins' records. It's a very, very interesting sound, and it's funny that I put them between these two because sonically it does lie somewhere between, the punchiness of the 421, but it's got the low-end complexity that something like the, D-series microphones from AKG are going to give you. This is the AKG D12, and to me, this is the sound of the 90s. The 90s, early 2000s, absolutely loved this microphone. When I first became a recording engineer, this was the microphone that was in choice for the kick drum. Everybody said that if you weren't recording kick drums with a D112, you were kind of doing it wrong. I've never been the biggest fan of this microphone on the kick drum. It's always been particularly lacking to me. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, it is what it is. This microphone is a very, very interesting one. This is a PZM microphone. And I know we talked about there being three, distinct types of microphones earlier, but there are multiple different types of microphones. And this is another one, which is a pressure microphone, or what's also known as a boundary microphone. And these were typically designed to be used on conference tables to pick up the sound of multiple people talking in a room, and it actually utilizes the sound waves that goes through the table and into the microphone to, make the sound that you hear coming out of the speakers. But it's also really, really killer on a kick drum microphone. And if you put a pillow in a blanket, a pillow or a really thick blanket inside of kick drum and really stiffen that guy out, you can utilize this microphone and you will get a lot of low end and you will get a very, very crisp top end. One of the best top end reproductions, from any of these microphones for a kick drum, in my opinion. The Beta 52, in my opinion, is the modern kick drum microphone. This is what we utilize. There's a lot of people who are utilizing it now. When I first started, this microphone was available at the same time as the D12 or the D112, and everybody tended to hate on the Beta 52. And I remember a very classic, quote from one of the people who instructed me growing up was, I'd pick a D112 over a Beta 52 because if I wanted to EQ 10 dB at 60 hertz onto my kick drum, I could go ahead and do it myself. For me, on the other end, I like the way this microphone sounds. I think that it sounds super thick, it's super punchy, and it gives you a result that is much closer to what you're going to hear on a modern record today, personally. So this microphone gets utilized in a lot of ways that I think that this microphone used to get utilized in my work. And what I mean by that is that I can utilize some of these guys to pick up more knock or mid-range presence from the drums, and then I will utilize the Beta 52 to focus on primarily what's happening below 200 hertz and that low end that's coming through, which leads me to this microphone, which I can also use for that. And this is primarily for 60 hertz and below. And it is an old NS10 woofer that came out of an NS10 we bought off eBay from Japan. And the speaker sounded great, but it was completely ugly. So we just lined it up with zip ties on this small XLR stand, and it comes out to one XLR cable, and we use that as a sub kick. Then the most modern sounding kick drum microphone, in my opinion, that we have at the studio is this Audix D6 microphone. And this microphone is what I would consider the metal kick drum microphone. It's got a very, very clicky sound to it when it comes to kick drums. But what's interesting about it is I have had good results recording a whole drum set with this microphone. And I think that that's very interesting. We heard that originally from Mr. Sugarman, from the Sugarman Trio, where they recorded a whole drum set through an Audix D6. So, we tried it out, and it actually works pretty damn well.